Paramount Studios, March 1954. A studio executive just asked Audrey Hepburn one question that could destroy her career. Can you dance like Marilyn Monroe? 40 people stood frozen, waiting. What Audrey did in the next 12 seconds didn't just answer the question, it changed what Hollywood thought a star could be. Let's rewind. Los Angeles, California, Paramount Studios, Soundstage 4, March 23, 1954. Tuesday afternoon, 3:15 in the afternoon. The air inside the rehearsal hall is thick with cigarette smoke, the scent of rosin dust from the dance floor, and the particular tension that comes when powerful men are waiting to be impressed or disappointed. Audrey Hepburn stands alone on the polished wooden floor, wearing a simple black leotard and rehearsal skirt, her hair pulled back in a perfect ballet bun. She is 24 years old, 5 feet 7 inches tall, 110 pounds. Her posture is flawless. Years of ballet training make that automatic, but her hands, hidden in the folds of her skirt, are trembling. 40 people line the edges of the room. Studio executives in expensive suits, their faces showing that particular combination of boredom and judgment that comes from having too much power. Choreographers with clipboards, whispering to each other, assessing, dance assistants in rehearsal clothes, some sympathetic, some competitive, all watching. A pianist sits at a baby grand piano in the corner, fingers resting on the keys. 3 camera operators positioned at different angles, equipment dark, waiting. This is not a scheduled rehearsal. This is a test. An audition that shouldn't be necessary after Sabrina made Audrey a star 3 months ago, but somehow, inexplicably is. The problem has a name: Marilyn Monroe. 2 weeks ago, Marilyn performed Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend in Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. The scene became an instant cultural phenomenon. Marilyn in a pink dress, dripping with diamonds, surrounded by tuxedoed men, her hips swaying, her voice breathy and seductive, embodying everything Hollywood believes sex appeal should be. The scene is playing in every theater in America, making millions of dollars, setting a standard that every actress is now being measured against. This morning, Audrey's agent called. "Paramount wants to see you dance," he said, his voice apologetic. "They're considering you for a new musical, but they need to know if you have the kind of presence Marilyn has." Audrey knew exactly what he meant. They wanted to know if she could be sexy, if she could move her body the way Marilyn did, if she could be what she was not. Thomas Brennan, the lead studio executive, breaks away from the group of suits, walks toward Audrey. His shoes click on the wooden floor. The sound echoes. He stops 5 feet from her, hands in his pockets, examining her like merchandise. "Miss Hepburn," he says, loud enough for everyone to hear. "We've seen your work. You're talented. No question. But talent alone doesn't sell tickets. Glamour sells tickets. Sex appeal sells tickets. Marilyn Monroe dancing in a pink dress sells tickets." Audrey doesn't respond, just waits. Her ballet training taught her when to speak and when to listen. This is a moment to listen. Brennan continues, pausing for effect. "We're considering you for a major musical. Big budget, major production. But we need to know something first." The question comes like a punch. "Can you dance like Marilyn?" The room goes completely silent. Everyone watching, the choreographers, the assistants, even the pianist has turned to look. "Can you dance like Marilyn?" But nobody in that room knew what those words meant to Audrey Hepburn. Nobody knew what it costs to be asked if you can be someone else. Nobody knew that this wasn't the first time Audrey had been told she wasn't enough. The question isn't really about dancing. It's about abandoning what makes her unique and imitating something Hollywood already has. It's about choosing success over self, about sacrificing authenticity for commercial viability. Audrey has faced this question her entire life, not in words, but in looks, implications, the way casting directors assess her, the way costume designers try to pad her slim frame, the way directors ask if she can be more feminine, more approachable, more like what audiences expect. During the war, when Nazi forces occupied the Netherlands and food became scarce, Audrey's body grew thin from malnutrition, not by choice, by survival. At 15 years old, she ate tulip bulbs to stay alive during the hunger winter of 1944-45. When 20,000 Dutch civilians starved to death, her body's thinness is not a fashion statement. It's a permanent mark of childhood starvation, of bones that didn't develop properly, of a metabolism forever altered. In ballet school, instructors said she was too tall, her feet too large, her frame too angular for classical roles. In theater, producers wanted leading ladies with more conventional beauty, more curves, more of everything Audrey doesn't have. And now this question: can you dance like Marilyn? Audrey looks at Thomas Brennan. Her dark eyes are calm, focused. She has learned to hide emotion behind grace, to mask vulnerability with poise. But inside, something is shifting, a decision being made, a line being drawn. She says quietly, clearly, each word deliberate, "No, I cannot dance like Marilyn Monroe." The room's silence deepens, becomes total. Brennan's eyebrows raise. "Excuse me? I cannot dance like Marilyn Monroe," Audrey repeats, her voice steady. "Because I am not Marilyn Monroe. I will never be Marilyn Monroe, and I don't want to be." What she said next would either destroy her career or redefine it forever. Brennan's expression hardens. "Miss Hepburn, I don't think you understand what's at stake here." "I understand perfectly," Audrey interrupts gently. "You want to know if I can perform in a way that imitates someone else. The answer is no. I can only perform as myself." She turns slightly, addresses the room, her voice still quiet but carrying to every corner. "Marilyn Monroe is extraordinary. Her talent, her presence, her ability to capture an audience, it's remarkable, but it's hers. It belongs to her. I have nothing but respect for what she does, but I cannot be her." "Then perhaps you're not right for Hollywood. Hollywood needs stars who can give audiences what they want." "Then perhaps," Audrey responds, her voice like silk over steel, "Hollywood needs to expand what it thinks audiences want." The silence in the room is electric, dangerous. A 24-year-old actress has just contradicted a studio executive who controls which careers live and which careers die. She has challenged the fundamental assumptions of the entire industry. She has risked everything with a few sentences. Brennan takes a step closer, his voice dropping to something almost threatening. "You're willing to throw away a major role over this?" Audrey meets his eyes without flinching. "I'm willing to throw away a role that requires me to be someone I'm not. If I have to pretend to be Marilyn Monroe to succeed, then I don't want that success." "You're making a mistake." "Perhaps, but it will be my mistake, made as myself, not someone else's success achieved by pretending to be someone I'm not." Three production assistants shift uncomfortably. This has gone beyond a simple audition. This has become a confrontation about power, about identity, about what Hollywood can demand from its actresses. Then something unexpected happened that changed everything. Edith Head, the legendary costume designer, steps forward. She's been standing in the corner, silent until now, but her voice cuts through the tension like a knife. "Mr. Brennan, I need to say something." Brennan looks irritated. "Edith, this doesn't concern." "It concerns me very much," Edith interrupts, her voice clear and firm. "You're asking the wrong question. I'm asking if she can perform in a way that audiences will pay to see. You're asking if she can imitate someone else. That's not the same thing." Edith turns to Audrey, then back to Brennan. "Marilyn Monroe is successful because she's authentic. She's not trying to be anyone else. She's completely uniquely herself. And that's exactly what makes Audrey valuable too. She's not Marilyn, she's something different, something Hollywood doesn't have." "Hollywood doesn't need different," Brennan says dismissively. "Hollywood needs what works. Hollywood needs both," Edith counters. "And right now you're about to throw away something rare because you're too focused on duplicating something you already have." The pianist, who has been silent this entire time, suddenly speaks up from his corner. "I've worked with both of them, Marilyn and Audrey, and Edith's right, they're completely different. Marilyn is fire and curves and sex appeal. Audrey is elegance and vulnerability and grace. You don't compare them. You appreciate them both." Another voice joins in. One of the choreographers, a woman who has worked on dozens of Hollywood musicals. "If you want Marilyn's dancing, hire Marilyn. But if you want something new, something that will surprise audiences, let Audrey be Audrey." The tide in the room is shifting. More voices joining. Not everyone. Some executives still stand with arms crossed, skeptical, but enough. The camera operators, the dance assistants, people who work with performers every day and understand the difference between imitation and authenticity. Brennan looks around, realizing he's losing control. His face is red, his jaw tight. "Fine, Miss Hepburn, show us what you can do, not Marilyn's dancing. Yours. Show us why we should believe in your version of performance." What happened in the next 12 seconds would become legend. Audrey nods once. She walks to the pianist, speaks to him quietly. He nods, adjusts his sheet music, places his fingers on the keys. The music that begins is not sultry, not seductive. It's delicate, a waltz, something that requires precision, grace, the kind of dancing Audrey trained for since childhood. And Audrey dances, not with Marilyn's hip-swaying sensuality, not with exaggerated gestures meant to captivate male executives. She dances the way she was trained, the way her body knows, with perfect posture, extended lines, movements that are controlled, elegant, expressive in their restraint, rather than their excess. The waltz carries her across the floor. Her movements are precise, each step placed exactly where it should be. Her arms extend in classical lines, fingers soft but intentional. There's no seduction in it, no attempt to capture attention through sexuality. Instead, there's vulnerability. When Audrey dances, she's not hiding. She's not performing armor. She's completely present, completely exposed, showing emotion through movement in a way that requires more courage than any amount of manufactured sex appeal. Her face shows it, not the blank doll face of many Hollywood dancers, but genuine feeling, sadness, hope, longing, joy, all flowing through her expression like water. She doesn't try to be sexy, she tries to be truthful, and there's a power in that truth that no amount of hip swaying can match. The choreographer watching from the side leans forward, recognizing something she's rarely seen, a performer who's not performing, who's simply existing fully in the moment, letting the movement express what words cannot. 12 seconds pass. A series of turns, an arabesque held for 3 beats, a releve that shows the strength in her ankles, the years of training in her body. Simple movements, classical, nothing revolutionary. But there's something in the way Audrey moves, something in her face, her expression, the vulnerability mixed with strength, the sadness mixed with grace, that makes it impossible to look away. This isn't entertainment, this is communication. This is a human being saying, "This is who I am. This is what I have to offer." It's not what you expected, it's not what you wanted, but it's real, and it's mine. When she finishes, her chest rising and falling with breath, her arms lowering slowly to her sides, the silence continues for 3 heartbeats. The silence is not empty. It's full of people processing what they just witnessed, trying to reconcile it with their expectations, their commercial instincts that say this isn't what sells tickets. But full also with recognition that something genuine just happened, something you can't fake, can't manufacture, can't teach. Then Edith's head began to clap, slowly, deliberately. One by one, others join. The choreographers, the assistants, even some of the executives. Not everyone. Brennan stands with his arms crossed, expression unreadable, but enough people are applauding that it's clear. Audrey has passed a test she didn't know she was taking. Not a test of whether she could be like someone else, but a test of whether she had the courage to be herself. Brennan finally speaks, his voice tight. "Thank you, Miss Hepburn. We'll be in touch." Audrey nods, collects her things, walks toward the exit. As she reaches the door, Edith's head catches up to her. "That took courage," Edith says quietly. "Or foolishness," Audrey replies, her voice tired. "Sometimes they're the same thing. But you were right. Hollywood needs different voices, different kinds of beauty. You represent something important. Don't lose that." Audrey smiles, genuine but exhausted. "I'll try not to." She leaves the studio, walks across the Paramount lot in her rehearsal clothes, carrying her bag. She has no idea if she'll get the role, no idea if her refusal to conform has just destroyed her career, no idea if she'll ever work again, but she knows one thing with absolute certainty: she didn't compromise who she is. 3 weeks pass, 3 weeks of silence, 3 weeks of wondering if she made the right choice or the worst mistake of her life. Then the phone rings. Her agent's voice is different, excited, almost disbelieving. "They want you for a different project. Not the musical, something else, a romantic comedy called Funny Face. They want you to play opposite Fred Astaire." Audrey's heart pounds. Did they say why? They said, and I quote, "Because we realized we already have actresses who can do what Marilyn does. We need someone who can do what Audrey does." The film Funny Face will be released in 1957. It will showcase Audrey dancing, not like Marilyn, but like herself. Elegant, graceful, unique. The film will be moderately successful commercially, but more importantly, it will cement Audrey's identity as something distinct in Hollywood. But the real impact won't be measured in box office numbers. Over the following decades, the story of that rehearsal hall will be told and retold. Some versions will say Audrey stormed out. Some will say the executives begged her to stay. Some will say she cried, or shouted, or collapsed. But the people who were actually there will remember the truth. A young woman standing alone on a dance floor, being asked to be someone she wasn't, and having the courage to say no. Years later, in an interview, Audrey will be asked about that day. The interviewer will say, "Is it true you were asked to dance like Marilyn Monroe and refused?" Audrey will smile that gentle smile that became her trademark. "I was asked if I could perform in a certain way. I explained that I could only perform as myself. Whether that was the right choice for my career, I don't know, but it was the right choice for my soul." Do you think you would have been more successful if you'd been willing to adapt more? Perhaps, but success that requires you to abandon yourself is not really success. It's surrender. And I spent my childhood surviving a war, surviving hunger, surviving circumstances that tried to break me. I didn't survive all of that just to break myself for Hollywood. But here's what the history books don't tell you about that day. After Audrey left, after the applause faded, after most people filed out of the rehearsal hall, Thomas Brennan stayed behind. He sat alone in one of the folding chairs, staring at the empty dance floor where Audrey had stood. Edith Head, collecting her notes, noticed him there. She almost left without saying anything. But something made her stop. "She reminded you of someone, didn't she?" Edith said quietly. Brennan looked up, startled. "What?" "Audrey." When she stood there and refused to pretend,
She reminded you of someone. Brennan was silent for a long moment. Then, so quietly Edith almost didn't hear it. My sister. Edith waited. She wanted to be an actress, Brennan continued, his voice distant, remembering. Back in the 20s, before sound, she was different. Like Audrey. Not what the studios wanted. They told her to change everything about herself. Her hair, her name, her accent, everything that made her who she was. Did she do it? Yes, and it destroyed her. She became what they wanted, and she hated herself for it. She quit acting after 3 years. I haven't spoken to her in 15 years. Edith sat down in the chair next to him. They sat in silence for a moment, the empty rehearsal hall around them, holding the echo of what had just happened. You're going to give her the role, aren't you? Edith finally said. Not the musical, but something. Brennan nodded slowly. We can't have another Marilyn. We already have Marilyn. But maybe we can have an Audrey. Maybe that's what audiences need. Someone real. Edith smiled. About time Hollywood figured that out. This conversation never made it into any biography. Never appeared in any interview. But it happened. And it mattered. Because it meant that Audrey's choice to be herself didn't just affect her own career. It changed how at least one powerful executive thought about what Hollywood could be. The real lesson of that day isn't just about Audrey Hepburn. It's about everyone who has ever been asked to be someone they're not. In 1954, the mathematics seemed simple. Marilyn Monroe's films were making more money than Audrey Hepburn's. Marilyn's image was more recognizable, more commercially viable. If success was measured purely in box office dollars, Marilyn won. But 70 years later, both women are icons. And they're icons of different things. Marilyn represents Hollywood's idea of what a woman should be. The blonde bombshell, the sex symbol, the perfect curves, the breathy voice. And she also represents the tragedy of what that pressure can do to a human being. The price of being what everyone wants you to be, instead of who you actually are. Audrey represents something else entirely. She represents the possibility of being yourself in an industry that demands conformity. She represents grace under pressure, authenticity in a world of artifice, strength that doesn't require you to lose your gentleness. And Audrey's choice in that rehearsal hall to be herself rather than an imitation created a template, a roadmap. Living proof that you could survive Hollywood without sacrificing who you are. That proof mattered. It mattered to Katharine Hepburn, who fought her own battles with studio expectations. It mattered to every actress who came after, who faced the same pressure to conform, to fit the mold, to be whoever the industry needed them to be in that moment. It mattered to anyone who has ever been told they're not enough, they're too much, they're wrong in ways they cannot control and should not try to change. The message Audrey sent in those 12 seconds wasn't just about dancing. It was about identity, about worth, about the difference between success that requires you to abandon yourself and success that comes from being exactly who you are. Think about the courage that required. She was 24 years old. She had one successful film to her name, Sabrina, which had received mixed reviews. She had no leverage, no power, no safety net. If Paramount had blacklisted her, if other studios had decided she was difficult to work with, if the industry had collectively decided she wasn't worth the trouble, her career could have ended in that room. She made the choice anyway. Not because she was guaranteed a good outcome, not because she knew it would work out, but because some things matter more than career survival. Your soul matters more. Your integrity matters more. Your right to exist as yourself, without apology, without alteration, without becoming an imitation of someone else, that matters more than any role, any contract, any amount of money or fame. Audrey knew this in her bones. She learned it during the war, when she was a teenager in Nazi-occupied Netherlands, when survival meant eating tulip bulbs and hiding from soldiers, when holding onto your humanity was an act of resistance even when everything around you was trying to destroy it. She learned it in ballet school, when her body refused to fit the classical mold, too tall, too angular, feet too large, and she had to decide whether to break herself trying to fit or find a different path. She learned it in every audition, every casting call, every moment when someone looked at her and immediately saw what she wasn't, rather than what she was. And in that rehearsal hall, standing alone on that dance floor while 40 people watched and judged, she knew it again. I cannot be Marilyn Monroe. I can only be Audrey Hepburn. And if that's not enough for you, then we're not meant to work together. That's not arrogance. That's clarity. That's self-knowledge. That's the hardest thing any of us ever has to do. Know who we are and refuse to pretend to be someone else, even when pretending might be easier, safer, more profitable. The world remembers Audrey Hepburn today, not because she learned to dance like Marilyn Monroe, but because she had the courage to dance like herself, to move through the world with grace, with vulnerability, with that particular combination of strength and gentleness that was uniquely hers. And in those 12 seconds of movement, in that quiet refusal to be anyone but herself, in that moment of choosing authenticity over commercial viability, she changed what Hollywood thought was possible. Not immediately. The change didn't happen overnight. Paramount didn't suddenly greenlight a dozen films starring thin European actresses with unusual beauty. The industry didn't transform in a day. But slowly, gradually, Permanently, the definition of what a Hollywood star could be began to expand. Room was made for different kinds of beauty, different kinds of talent, different ways of being a woman on screen, and every actress who came after Audrey, every woman who didn't fit the conventional mold, who brought something different, something unique, something authentically themselves to the screen, they all walked through a door that Audrey helped open, not by being loud, not by being aggressive, not by demanding recognition, but by simply, quietly, courageously being herself and refusing to pretend otherwise. Real change happens through quiet moments of integrity, through individuals who draw a line and say, "This is who I am, this is what I offer. Take it or leave it, but I won't compromise my soul to fit your expectations." Audrey Hepburn was asked if she could dance like Marilyn Monroe. Her answer, given in 12 seconds of authentic, vulnerable, truthful movement, was clear. "No, I cannot dance like Marilyn Monroe, because I am not Marilyn Monroe, but I can dance like myself. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough." 70 years later, the world still remembers that answer, not because it was the easy choice, not because it guaranteed success, not because it made her immediately rich or famous, but because it was the true choice, the authentic choice, the choice that said, "I would rather be myself and fail than be someone else and succeed." And in the end, that's the only choice that matters. That's the only choice that lasts. That's the only choice that changes the world. 12 seconds, one dance, one choice, a lifetime of impact. That's Audrey Hepburn's legacy. Not the films she made, not the fashion she inspired, not even the humanitarian work she did later in life. Her legacy is this: the courage to be yourself in a world that constantly demands you be someone else. And that legacy lives on in everyone who faces that same choice today. In every boardroom where someone is told to be more aggressive, more masculine, more like the successful executives who came before. In every classroom where a child is told to be quieter, more obedient, more like the other students. In every family where someone is pressured to pursue a career they don't want, marry someone they don't love, live a life that isn't theirs. The choice Audrey made in that rehearsal hall is the same choice we all face, in different forms throughout our lives. Will you be yourself, or will you be what others want you to be? Audrey chose herself. In 12 seconds that changed everything.